Hello, and welcome back to Heart with Abagaba, the podcast that celebrates family, connection, and purpose filled living. I'm your host, Abby Dominguez. My guest today is a multi talented, deeply thoughtful, and inspiring Yusef Marshall, also known as Mr. Yu. He is a man of many hats: author, podcaster, speaker, advocate, bonus dad, and more. Though certified and licensed in many fields, he identifies most as a regular guy introduced to some extraordinary life experiences. Today, we explore his powerful journey from fatherhood without a father to redefining masculinity to living out his purpose through storytelling, spiritual transformation, and honest conversation with men. You'll hear about the making of his book, The Heart of a Stepfather, why he cringes at the term coach, and how discovering purpose changed everything. Get ready for a heart to heart filled with laughter, honesty, and a whole lot of depth. Mr. Yu, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate this.
I'm doing well, thank you. So I am connecting with you from Mesa, Arizona. Could you please tell our listeners where we are connecting from and add a short bio?
Sure, we're in the Charleston, South Carolina area.
Nice. How is the weather there? Is it warm? Is it hot? Is it?
It's always hot.
Oh yeah, just like
Uh,
Arizona. It's always
yeah,
hot here.
it's
Well,
hot.
yeah.
95 degrees today, so
Oh,
it's hot.
okay. I can relate to that.
You guys got a dry heat, so that might be a little bit different, but it's really hot.
At least it's not humid, so we'll take that.
All right, that's good. That's good.
All right. Do you want to add a short bio?
I'm ready to jump in.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to ask you, can you share your musical journey and what got you to where you are?
That's interesting. I'm originally from New York City, originally, the borough of Brooklyn. So I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and hip hop and R&B music was kind of the background of my entire childhood. So I guess it was natural if I had any kind of singing voice or any kind of musical abilities that I would do that, and I did. I spent a good bit of time, maybe close to a little over a decade in that industry. It did culminate into an independent record deal, which was good. A lot of learning lessons in that. The music business is not for the faint of heart. So, I learned a lot from that, but eventually I transitioned out of it and kind of begin to change my life. My faith began to be developed, and I moved more into gospel and worship centric music, excuse me. So that's kind of what happened. I think the journey started with just having a love for the kind of I hesitate to say inspirational, even though the music inspired me, but I wouldn't call it inspirational music, but it kind of
Uh-huh.
helped me get through a lot of things that were hard things in my life coming up in my hometown. So a lot of the music I was listening to, they kind of just carried me, helped kind of push me through.
Hmm.
They kind of resembled or exhibited the grit and the kind of hustle that I needed to get from where I was to where I needed to be to begin to craft a life for myself. So the music was important at that time. Have nothing bad to say about it. It really helped me develop as a person at
Hmm.
that time. But I've kind of evolved a little bit, a little older
Yeah,
now, a lot more things going on, but it's kind of how it started.
that's wonderful. It must have been such a formative part of your identity. How did that creativity shape your life beyond music?
I feel like the opportunity was always there, but as a young person, I didn't always take it. I saw people around me who were deeply religious, but I felt
Hmm.
like something was always missing. So it took me a long time, and I mean that quite literally. It took me a long time to kind of begin to, I guess, walk in my own shoes, for lack of a better word, instead of somebody else's shoes
Right.
when it came to my faith. So that culminated in 1996. I began to, after some really rough stuff happening with the music business for us, and just some really not so great feelings I was having. Some dark stuff was going on, and it kind of just culminated into a change of scenery, leaving my hometown, which was super hard,
Yeah,
and
I can
moving
imagine.
and moving into unfamiliar place, which is South Carolina, super unfamiliar, and,
Yeah.
and to move here and begin to start kind of pivoting a little bit. So my faith really started to begin to really kick in a high gear here. I learned a lot about me that I didn't like, and I'm like, wow,
Hmm.
dude, I didn't know you were in there. I gotta get you out of here. So
Yeah.
it was rough sledding for a good while, but my time here culminated into incredible life, a beautiful wife, three daughters, and we got six grandkids now and one great grandchild now. So South Carolina has been really, really good to us.
That's amazing. So,
Thank you.
speaking of family, how did you handle being a father without having one?
Been talking about this a lot on recent guest spots like this, and thank you for even asking the questions. It's pretty awesome, Abby. Uh, Honestly, the answer is not something that is flowery and kind of a nice answer with a ribbon on it. It's just
Hmm.
I didn't have any coaches. I didn't have anybody to kind of be consistent father figures. Honestly, I mean, I learned how to be a father to some
Hmm.
degree from watching the Cosby Show.
Ah.
Like, cringe just saying it because I know people are like, ooh, what a bad. Well, at that time, it was a fantastic example for me because it was like, okay, this is the kind of family you can have. It was always criticized as not being realistic for
Mm.
certain people. And
Right.
I always feel like, you know what? This is, if that's attainable, I
Hmm.
want to attain that. And being
Hmm.
from New York, it wasn't hard for me to say, you know what? If I can do that, I'm going to do it. So
Hmm.
the rebel in me was already ready for that challenge. But I didn't have that. So a lot of what I tried to do was kind of twofold. One, I spent a lot of time reading. I was always an avid reader anyway, but I
Yeah.
read more on the subjects, fatherhood stuff, how to deal with young daughters and who are going into teen years, all those kind of things. I read on that, but the biggest thing I think was the most important. I worked on me. So,
Yeah.
so I tried to really make sure that I was the kind of person that the Bible that I read was talking about. I want to make sure
Hmm.
it was a match.
Yeah.
I could look in the mirror of the word and not see something totally different or opposite what I was reading and preaching and teaching other people.
Right.
So those two things came together, and hard times in our household. Just people say that the first 5 years are the roughest. It's not a lie. the first
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first 10 years aren't that great either. But honestly, it's been a blessing. And those two steps I took to work on myself, I think they play a big part in the kind of father I became. Didn't have an example, didn't have a role model. It sounds sad. It was sad because
Hmm.
you were going to have that, but honestly, I kind of feel like God was my father,
Yeah.
and
Truly.
that's how I learned
Truly.
how to do what I've done. Even up to this day, I'm still learning things that nobody's around to show me. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm growing and learning, and it's been a fun journey. I can't lie, but there's been some rough spots, but overall,
Hmm.
really positive journey.
Yeah. Out of the rough spots, help us to grow. So you're doing wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's such a courageous path. Were there moments you surprised yourself with what you were capable of giving?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 'cause when you think about it, I mean, there's no context for most of the stuff that I'm experiencing right now. Honestly, there was no context for a healthy marriage. We're going into year 29 next month. There,
Ooh, that's
there's,
amazing.
there's,
Congrats again.
thank you. We had no context for this. I mean, as a matter of fact, my wife would probably agree. We didn't have context for any of it. So we both learned, through our faith and through just experiencing some things, how to be able to do this and overcome the rough stuff and still continue to keep moving forward. So we did that. I was surprised that I'm surprised I made it this long. It's not because
Wow.
of my anything. I'm
Hmm.
just shocked that I didn't do what so many people have done, even people have done in my life, to kind of cut and run when things
Hmm.
are getting hard. Because
Right.
I was in a battle. You know what I'm saying? I mean, my wife was too, but my battle was different just because
Hmm.
of who I was, how I came into the situation, where I came from, the kind of demeanor and attitude I had coming from that place to a place where
Hmm.
it was radically different in culture,
Right.
mindset,
Right.
parenting skills and styles, you name it. Everything
Yeah.
was different about me. So,
Yeah.
so my battle was a different type of war that my wife had to deal with.
Hmm.
But I'm shocked that I got this far, honestly. I mean, I
Wow.
believe in the faithfulness of God, and I believe
Mhm.
that most folks I tell the story to, they believe in that too. But I'm shocked. I'm like, wow, how did you get here?
Yeah, it was God.
No blueprint for this.
Definitely. You had
Absolutely.
him, you had God as your father, and he's led and guided your step. That is so inspiring. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing that. And why did you step into the podcasting world?
Hmm. Well, that story was a little bit rough. It came out of some real tragic circumstances that we probably can all relate to some degree in 2020, one of the worst times in our world's history.
Oh yeah.
Had some real struggles with some loss that I was experiencing personally, issues with my career.
Mm-hmm.
A lot was going on, and I was at a super low point. I've been in low points before, but this one was a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it the worst, but it's definitely in the top three.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm having some feelings here. I don't know what's going on. And I was always a writer, excuse me. I was a writer since I was 6 years old. So writing was always my therapy. I used it throughout my childhood and well into my adulthood. But that year, even my writing wasn't providing me any kind of therapy. It wasn't making me feel better. And usually it would give me some perspective at the very least. And I couldn't
Right.
find it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt inspired. I would just keep it short and call it an epiphany. And I had an epiphany that, you know what? Your voice is what you're going to use now. I'm
Right.
like, I feel like I'm an introvert, so I don't see me using my voice to do it. I kind of rebelled against that idea immediately. Man, I don't think I want to do that. But it was a very persistent push, and I accepted it. And I just began to go ahead and just thrust myself into the podcast world. I got the equipment almost for free, so I knew that was something that was way over my head for that to happen. Uh, I began to start crafting episodes, just inspirational stuff to kind of be a voice for the voiceless, so to speak to the people who were dealing with the same thing I was, and
Yeah.
try to offer some kind of encouragement, try to offer some perspective, I guess, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
about what life actually is outside of this thing that's going on. It's going to be a cycle it's going to come and it's going to go. And there's going to be change on the other side of it. I'm trying to just offer perspective and encourage myself at the same time. So I started doing that. Built up a couple of shows and it turned into about 7 shows. And then I was doing 6 or 7 guest spots on other people's shows. It was just like it became a thing. And before you
Right.
know, 5 years later, we have 4 shows now. 3 of them are uh, basically bent on inspiration, helping folks find purpose, encouraging folks to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And here we are. What started off as 1 show turned into 4, and
Wow.
we're just excited about the brand and what's going on, and we're hoping that we're making an impact in people's lives. I'm hearing some things from our listeners. I don't hear as much as I want to hear, but I hear a good bit, and it seems as
Mm-hmm.
though we're making some strides in that area. So that's kind of how we started. Started from a bad place, but turned out to be really, really good. So I'm excited
That
about it. It's become a full-time job.
that is so wonderful. What inspired your first book, The Heart of the Stepfather?
I think what inspired that was the therapy part again. I wrote the book. It was 194 pages. I wrote it in 6 weeks. So I was coming home from a really, really rough job with the government. It was not for the faint of heart. So I was coming home and not feeling good about me, some
Mm-hmm.
depression a little bit too. And I was just dealing with stuff in the house with the family. I'm like, oh my God, this is like I can't come here to find peace. Excuse me. So it was rough here too. So I'm like, I need to get this stuff out of me. And I began to just sat down, begin to type. I was typing on the typewriter at that time. Uh, and just begin or word process anyway. Begin to type that stuff out. And it turned out it began to start forming paragraphs and then chapters. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a book. So I began to just keep doing that, and I didn't realize how much of an impact it was going to make on me and the people who were in my family, because a lot of folks didn't agree with my assessment of what I was saying. I'm like, this is my story though. I can't make my story match your recollection of what happened.
Right.
I had to write my story from my perspective since I'm the author, right? So I did that. Like I said, it wasn't easy sledding. Like people were not thrilled to be named or included or to for their aspects that they like to be discussed, but it was something I had to do. Uh, and it was going pretty well at first, as far as the book production and everything, and the response to it. The company had some financial issues, and it kind of went belly up. So I didn't get a chance to fully realize that dream, but we got some things on the horizon, hopefully, that allow us to continue that story and offer some more books. So we're excited about that. But that book was just opportunity for me to kind of make one or two central points that I want to make to people who are reading it. One, that that stepfather term, you know, I widely saw that as a negative term, as almost like somebody who was a replacement. I never saw myself that way. I never used the word stepfather at any point, at any time
Hmm.
during the entire during the entire journey. I was a father from the beginning, even though I didn't have one. I was a father from the beginning
Right.
and a father till the end. That was just my one of my main rules. I was just a stickler about that part. And the second thing was that, I really believe that healthy families create healthy communities, and healthy communities make healthy cities and healthy nations and a healthy world. So I was really dedicated to making this the best I could possibly make it, even though I didn't have context to do so. So a lot of the responses I heard were from men who were pretty much at the end of their rope in blended family situations, and like, I just can't do this tug of war anymore. I'm just ready to give up. And they stayed on the bus or on the boat because of what they heard in that book. So excited about that.
That is so motivational. So much for sharing that.
Thank
So,
you.
can you share the experiences that made you value life more?
There's so
You
many,
may
but
you may have touched on that a little bit, but any more insights will be
oh,
appreciated.
sure, sure. Yeah, I think I may have, but honestly, there's so many ways to answer that question. I think I just harken back to 2020. I just feel like it was just relevant. I'm still, even 5 years later, people are still talking to me about that time, and it's saying how much their lives changed and how much and where they made specific pivots that year, or there was a dramatic change or decision they made that's put them on a different trajectory than they were on before 2020. So I'll just say that watching people, and I was just sharing this on the show earlier today, watching people die and not fulfill their purpose,
Mm,
and in a lot of cases they didn't have to. That's sobering to see that, because it's not a far stretch. You can say, you know what, that could have been me.
hmm.
So those things, and then seeing, like, I told about a gentleman worked in the corporate world. I think he was in there for like 50 years, and right around the corner from here, he was flipping pieces that year, in that same year, because he was removed from his job after 50 years or so, or engineer about 50 years. I forgot which one it was, but he was in the corporate world for more than a career for most people,
Oh.
and he was doing a horrible job at the pizza because that wasn't his thing.
Hmm.
So I'm sure mentally he wasn't even into it, because like, I'm just doing this because I need some money
Hmm.
because I can't get another job. And I realized that, how replaceable we can be, how dispensable we can be as people. And it's like,
Hmm.
man, you gotta do all you can do while you have the opportunity, because circumstances can always change.
Yeah.
But see value in yourself from the beginning, because change is gonna come. That's a constant. It's gonna happen. So for me, I just watched those situations and I was like, I gotta do better for myself, because prior to 2020, that would probably have been close to the mm, close to the 35th year that I was feeling a pull toward entrepreneurship, and I kept on denying it. I kept pushing back against it and not leaning into it. And I had my family was on both on my maternal side. They were from the islands, from Cuba
Hmm.
and Panama, so they had a strong work ethic. It was all about getting a stable job and making it in America.
Right.
I carried that with me, even though I was born in America. Even though I saw people hustle and do things in entrepreneurship all the time, especially in New York, it was constant. It was
Right.
happening. It was happening before it was even cool.
Hmm.
And I watched that and I saw that, but I kept leaning in toward the more comfortable, stable choice that my parents or my grandparents would appreciate and laud me for. And I'm like, and I fought against that for 30 plus years before 2020. And it was that year that I recognized, you know what? This fight is not, I'm not fighting the right fight.
Hmm.
I know that going into business for myself and doing things on my own outside of a corporate blanket is not, it's not popular. And I get that. But that was the year that I said I saw too much. I said I saw people who didn't get a chance to do enough living, and they were already out of here. I said I don't want that to be me.
Yeah.
So I just made a point that year to kick off the next phase of my life, to walk in
Hmm.
entrepreneurship and begin to do some things for me for once, and
Hmm.
build on these. talents that I believe God gave me and put them into some real effective work instead of them being suffocated in the cubicle. So that's kind
Awesome.
of
That's wonderful. Why do you cringe at being called a coach or mentor?
I hope it doesn't sound hypocritical. I'm getting ready to start my coaching practice again. I'm working on some detail before we start launching it. It's going to be a lot bigger and better than anything I've ever done before, but it's going to be definitely going to be coaching again. But I cringe at it because even though I got people who call me that, I've been called things like coach, mentor, pastor. I've been called these things. I didn't look for them. I didn't invite them. They called me that because of what I was where I was serving and what I was doing for people. But
Right,
I cringe at it because you look around, especially online, especially in the podcast world. No shade intended here. This is just a fact of life in the community that we're in together. People call themselves coaches because they did one thing, or or they feel like if the other person can do it, I can do it too, and they call themselves a coach. Nobody calls them that. They're not certified to do it or anything. They call themselves coaches, and I
right,
cringe because if you call me coach or mentor, I'm cringing. I'm like, I don't want to be associated with people who are already doing stuff like that and not even don't even have the character to hold up that kind of label, that kind of title. They don't even have that the ability to they don't have the integrity to hold that kind of position. So I don't want people to think I'm like that. So I almost want to distance myself from it, but I don't know how I can. But I definitely cringe every time I hear. I'm like, oh, hope you don't think I'm like them because I'm not trying to accomplish that. I shoot for something more substantial, something deeper, something with more depth to it. So that's kind of why I cringe. If that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. If you weren't doing what you are now, what would you be doing as a career?
Okay. Well, I would take a lot of stuff off of the table. Then I wouldn't be writing. I wouldn't be a director of a nonprofit. I wouldn't be doing podcasting for sure. Uh, Probably wouldn't be doing any ministry work either. 'Cause I'm doing a lot of that. So all of that off of the table. I think what my original goal was, what I wanted to accomplish, the two things my mother did not want me to do. Try to decide for your sake which one to pick. But I wanted to be an arts and entertainment. I wanted to be an actor and a singer.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm doing the singing part now, so I guess I'll take that off too. I wanted to be an actor, or either that, or I wanted to be a baseball player. Uh, I think I had talents to build on in both areas, so I got to pick one. Hmm. I probably would have tried my hand at the baseball player.
The baseball, yeah,
I
that's
feel like I got a
cool.
better chance of that than being an actor,
That's cool.
especially in New York.
Speaking of singing, are you gonna sing a little something for us?
Maybe.
Could be a line, it could be something, anything, I don't
Oh, let's see.
know.
Oh, a line of a song. Oh, you put me on a spot. I like that though.
I know, I did.
You got to wait for me to think of a song now.
Okay, I can ask you my next thought and then you come
Yeah,
back to it, okay?
absolutely.
What would you tell a man who is struggling to make significant connections with other men?
I think this is from a place of experience, and of course, it's something that I'm pivoting in my life that's culminating into some opportunities to grow communities. So I'm trying to be encouraging, but also transparent at the same time. One of the things that I think we need to accept is that this is a real problem. It's not a gender related problem though. It's not just for men. Women have issues with that same thing. They could be standing in a room full of women and not remember anybody's first name. So it's
Right.
not. So it's not gender related. It's not a sickness only men have.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it just talked about a lot more, and I talk about it more because obviously I'm a man, so I see it so much more, and I experienced it. But I would just say that putting yourself out there, if you're going to be in communities, in rooms full of other men, take the time to say, you know what, talk to one person, learn their name, share one significant thing about you, and go from there. Take the big first step. It's intimidating. Sometimes it's kind of daunting to do that, to open up and be transparent in a world where men were told they couldn't cry, men were told they couldn't share their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and had to guard themselves because and just all the things that all the media cues that add to that about what men are supposed to be and what men can't be. Take the first step, surround yourself with at least one person that you trust as a man,
Mm-hmm.
and get to know them as much as possible. Share transparently with them, get to know them, share some of your life with them, parts of your heart with them, and I believe that it will be a snowball. It have a snowball effect. It will begin to start allowing you to hear other men with more intentionality, and before you know
Right.
it, like what happened with me, I
Mm-hmm.
began to have a network full of men in it that are willing to share about their life and be transparent. It's not a perfect science at all, but
Right.
that first step, you got to start somewhere. So if
You
you get
have
the
to.
10 and the
Hmm.
25 and the 50, just start with one.
Start with one. Yes. That is so profound. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, speaking of profound, what is the most profound lesson you've been taught about purpose?
Um, I kind of lean on two very specific quotes, excuse me, that I learned from our dearly departed mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, who's gone on to be with the Lord for many years now. But his
Hmm.
work has been profound in mine's and my wife's life and in our marriage
Yes,
as well. And one of the things that he talks about, well, two of the quotes, well, I want to butcher either one of the quotes, but the first one is a really, really long one. So I'll just get the Cliff Notes version of it. But it
yes,
says basically that the richest place in the world is not Fort Knox or the oil fields of Saudi Arabia or in Texas, but it's the graveyard.
graveyard.
Books, inventions that have been invented yet,
Mm-hmm.
songs that haven't been scribed yet, poems,
Mm-hmm.
ideas. They go into the grave because people who have them in them didn't see it fulfilled, didn't see it all the way through, didn't prioritize it, weren't intentional about making it come to pass, and they left all those riches in a place that they can't be used anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned from that I gotta live every life with purpose. And for me, it really changed how I was always a planner.
Mm-hmm.
I was always somebody who wrote down things and ideas. I was always good with that since I was a little kid. But I
Okay.
really learned how to live an intentional life. That means every day you get 24 hours. Even the richest person, even to the one in poverty, we all get
Right.
24 hours.
We'll do.
How
Yes.
we use it
Mm-hmm.
is the difference maker. It's the dividing line between somebody who's going to be successful and somebody who's going to live in a state of failure. So
Mm-hmm.
every day I try to just not map my life out to the point where it's robotic, but I just map out my life to the point where I'm intentional and everything
Mm.
I'm doing is for something.
For something.
I
Yeah.
didn't do that before.
Mm-hmm.
I did stuff with no goal in mind. I heard from great business minds a quote I love that says, start with the end in mind.
Right.
Wherever you think about going to, let that be your focus and do everything that you can to add to that, to build that. So for me, I wasn't doing that up to about 5 years ago, and now I'm living that kind of life now where I'm just intentional. I'm not everything's not super successful yet. I haven't gotten to the point I want to get to yet, but
Mm-hmm.
every day I'm looking at the hours that I have, whether it be 8 or 10 or 12 or 16, and I'm making every hour count as much as I
Right.
can. That's not a perfect science, but I'm trying to make every single hour count because
Mm-hmm.
every minute make
Mm-hmm.
it
It
count
matters.
because when you don't have it and the accounts close, you don't have it. That's the
Right.
end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really think it's really important to be purposeful and intentional about this life you have because it's only one you and you have something to contribute to this world.
Oh, yes.
Make good use of that. So
Oh, yes. Do you think purpose changes throughout our lives, or does it just reveal itself more clearly?
I believe that purpose leaves clues.
Hmm.
There's a lot of signs in our youth and in childhood that were clues to purpose. I just think that life, I think that the influence we had in our lives at the time, the environment we were in,
Yes.
sometimes it kind of tend to cloud that. I think I was sharing with you that, pleasing my mother and grandmother and getting the kind of job that would respect all the sacrifices they made for me
Hmm.
was my goal for decades. I'm like, but it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Right, right. I
I,
can.
I had a leaning toward entrepreneurship. I never gave into it until very, very recently. I'm not proud to say that, but it's really the truth.
Hmm.
And I think that, if we pay attention to the clues and teach our children how to pay attention to the clues, they won't live 30, 40 years, 50 years in a cubicle, dissatisfied, unfulfilled, and just feeling miserable.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that insight.
Thank you.
So I have a question. What precipitated you going from Christianity to Islam and now back to Christianity again?
Hmm. Part of it, great question, Abby. Part of it was finding myself. Uh, just I guess the purpose journey started earlier than I thought.
Hmm.
Just not feeling fulfilled and just with life the way it was. I'm like, there gotta be a point to all of this stuff. I would ask questions like that to myself. But one of the reasons why I think I made the switch, well, in regard to Christianity, my mother and my grandmother were very religious in that sense, and they really didn't, show me anything that was not good that I saw, but I just kind of felt like I wasn't connected to it.
Yeah.
There was something that was just missing for me in my uh in my watching their approach to it, and going to church every Sunday and just being involved in religious activity. I just couldn't see the end game, so the point of what we were doing.
Hmm.
Read the Bible, understood what they were talking about to some degree, but didn't see the point and didn't see it come through their lives in a way that it impacted me to wanting to do it. No offense to them, it's just kind of where I was. So
Hmm.
living in the inner city, if you're a young man, especially if you're black and brown, it's not just related to them only, but especially if you have a father in a household, you're open to a lot of different influences, whether it be gangs, cults,
Hmm.
different organizations and such. So I was really open to any group that would offer me community, brotherhood,
Hmm.
mentorship. If they offer that, I mean, any kid that I grew up around was going to be open to that easily because it filled a gap.
Yes.
It represented a need that we have, so it was like easy. So that's kind of how I got involved with Islam for that time that I was almost about a decade or so until I realized, long story short, that a lot of the things that were being offered to me that I thought like community and fatherhood and mentorship and brotherhood and
Hmm.
unity and togetherness and validating those things, there was some fine print I didn't see in the contract, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, I can't stay here. So through a near death experience, an attempted armed robbery, I came really close to not being here to tell you this story. So to me,
Hmm.
when I got a chance,
Hmm.
right after that incident, moments after it, I did what people do on TV, looked up to the sky and said, God, if you're real, I need you to show up. Not my
Oh,
grandmother's God, not my mama's God, but I need to know you for myself.
right,
And it
right.
wasn't an immediate reaction. There was no lightning strike or no dove flying over my head, nothing like that. It was just
Hmm.
a few years down the line, some things changed in my life, and I found myself in a different city
Hmm.
with a different mission. And since 1996, my life has been dramatically different because of the decision I made to want to live a purposeful life in Jesus Christ. So
Right. Such a deep personal story. What stayed constant for you during that spiritual evolution?
one of the things that I feel like was the constant was that I wanted to never get to a place where I didn't, where I thought I had it all
Hmm.
figured out. I felt like there was just so much to not just the Bible, but just to this whole faith thing.
Hmm.
And I just I just endeavor to. I'm not doing it perfectly even now as I speak to you today, but my plan was that I want to be intentional about continuing to stay in the posture of a student.
Hmm.
Uh, there's so many things that once you got them and you do them, you kind of feel good about yourself. You know what? Oh, I can teach. Everybody loved my teaching. Everybody loved my preaching. Everybody loved what I wrote in
Hmm.
my book or whatever it is. And we kind of almost get comfortable with the fact that, you know what, kind of leaning on those past accolades. That's what I did. And it was so awesome. But
Yes.
I always feel like that for me, this is Mr. You just talking personally. That's
Yeah.
that's a trap to me. It's a trap I never want to fall into.
Hmm.
I believe that you know, it has the potential to upend everything in your life if you give in to that. So for
Yeah.
me, I just try to stay in the posture of a student. I
Yeah.
don't know everything. And even
Hmm.
what I know I only understand that with a partial understanding.
Hmm.
So I got to understand more. I got to stay in school, so to speak, quote unquote, stay at the table, continue to keep gleaning and learning, and I found it to be true. I learned so much more. I've read passages of scripture over and over again and learned something new every single time. Not coincidental. There's levels to this. There's dimensions to this thing. So I just try to stay humble, recognize that even though I may have helped some folks in the past, the people across the country I've helped, they can say I've helped. I've been a mentor and a coach to them, been a friend, even a father or father figure to them. But
Mhm.
I just feel as though I have so much to learn, even at my ripe old age.
Oh,
I feel like I have so much to learn and so much areas to grow. I'm not even ready to be the old, the old sensei. I'm not even there yet. I'm just learning and growing in this thing and just trying to be the best Yusef that I can be.
thank you so much for sharing that. Mr. Yu, do you want to share your website, do you have a website, social media handles,
Oh, sure.
anything that you want to drop in so we can follow you?
Oh, absolutely. I love that. Please do. I think the best route to get all the social media handles and links in one place is they call me Mr. U .buzzsprout.com. They call
Nice.
me Mr. U .buzzsprout.com. It's spelled MISTAYU
Hmm.
.buzzsprout.com. I really believe that that's the best way to get all the information there. If you have any questions for me, or perhaps you want to discuss a coaching consultation, or just something you heard on episode like this one that impacted you, I'd love for you to reach out to me privately, and I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. So they call me Mr. U.buzzsprout.com. You can find all of our links there: YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, everything's there. So love to hear from you guys, and thanks for the opportunity, Abby, to even be on your show. This is awesome.
Thank you so very much. And I will make sure that I put your website in the show notes so that listeners can click on it and they can follow you and then just continue to follow the amazing work that you're doing for our community.
Oh,
Mr.
thank you.
Yu, thank you so much for visiting me today on Heart to Heart with Abagaba and sharing your incredible journey with us.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Mr. Yu reminds us that titles, certifications, and labels may change, but purpose, integrity, and love leave the greatest legacy. Whether you're a father, a bonus dad, creative, or someone navigating life's pivots, this conversation is a reminder that growth is possible and healing is real. Dear listeners, thank you so much for joining us today on Heart to Heart with Abagaba. If you loved this episode, share it with a friend who needs encouragement on their journey. And be sure to check out Mr. Yu's podcast, Bonus Dad Conversations, and his book, The Heart of the Stepfather, both linked in the show notes. Thank you for joining us for another heart to heart moment. I hope today's story touched your heart the way it touched mine. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe to this and our YouTube channel so you never miss a moment of connection, inspiration, and joy. The stories and insights shared on Heart to Heart with Abagaba are personal and based on lived experiences. While some of our guests may be licensed professionals in their fields, the content of this podcast should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. For expert guidance, please consult a qualified professional directly. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of each other, and keep celebrating the love that makes us family. Celebrate!